Today we're going to be talking about what happened to everyone after the Alamo. I'm going to answer questions about the main people that we've talked about, but if we get to the end of the video and there's someone from the book or from that we studied from the Alamo that you're like, you didn't tell me what happened to this person. I want to know what happened to this person. Just send me an email and I'll give you the best information that I have. I may not know, but I might. So the first person we're going to talk about is William Travis. He's the one that wrote the Victory or Death letter, one of the main leaders of the Alamo. He died at the North Wall. That's where the first hole in the wall of the Alamo happened, at the North Wall. How do we know what happened to him? Well, Susanna Dickinson's husband, remember in the book, there's a scene where he comes back in at the very end and says the Alamo's falling. He kind of tells her goodbye. And he tells her that he saw Travis get shot in the head, but as he fell dying, he killed a Mexican soldier as he fell. And that's the only account we have of how he died, is from Susanna. And so we take that as, it's the only account, it's the only thing that we know that happened to him. So there's no argument really about what happened to William Travis. There is a very famous diary of a soldier who was at the Alamo. And so a lot of the things that we know about what happened inside the Alamo are from his perspective, from his diary. And he talks about how the Mexican army was really shocked to find out that the leader of the Alamo died fighting at the most dangerous position at the hole of the North Wall. That shocked the Mexican army. And it really would have shocked armies around the world at that time, because what you usually did is you had your leader, the main person making decisions, you had them in the safest place. So you would put them at the very back of the battle so that they could continue directing and making decisions as long as possible. So you would keep them in as safe a place as possible. But remember, Travis knew that they were probably going to die. So he didn't feel like his place would be kind of hiding and directing, but more leading, like we're gonna fight to the very end. And I think that's probably why, that's just my opinion, why he was probably at the North Wall, just to encourage everyone to be brave. My favorite, James Bonham. He's the one who came back from Goliad after he had taken a message from to get help. And Susanna Dickinson said he died with William Travis. And she says she knew William Travis well. She knew James Bonham well. She claims to have known James Bowie and Davy Crockett well. She would have recognized them, and they weren't strangers to her. Not everybody knew everybody at the Alamo, probably, because there were 200 people or so. They probably didn't know everybody equally well. And so she says that he died fighting with William Travis, which we would expect. They were friends, and we would expect them to be together. So there's not a lot of disagreement about that either. But James Bowie, there's two different takes on how he died. And so in that situation, it's really up to you to decide whose account is more reliable to you. And we often have to do that in history. We have to look at all the sources and we say, okay, which is a more reliable source? Well, Susanna Dickinson says that he was in the chapel, that he was expected to die because he was so sick. So he wasn't doing very well when the final battle came to the Alamo. And she says that that the Mexican soldiers came into his sick room, that he shot two of them as they entered, and then they stabbed him. And that's her story about how he died. But some Mexican soldiers in their writing say that he was already dead when they got to that room. He was already dead. And so they assume that he died from illness. And so I think a lot of people seem to believe the Mexican soldiers' account more than Susanna's in this instance. I'm not real sure why. Maybe because they don't have any reason to try to make James Bowie look brave in any way. And maybe she does. Maybe she wants him to be remembered as, brave and tough, fighting to the end. But I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there, but those are the two accounts for how he died. Probably the most controversial story is how Davy Crockett died at the Alamo, and or if he did die at the Alamo even, and that is really tricky. Susanna says that she knew Davy Crockett well, and that as she left the church, she saw his dead body between the church and the barracks, and she recognized his hat, his coonskin hat. She recognized his body and his hat. And that's pretty reliable. I mean, she knew him. So it is likely that she she knew him. But a Mexican soldier records a different story in his journal. He says that at the very end of the battle, Davy Crockett and his volunteers, which this is true also, that he and his men were at the last part of the fort to be taken. That's true on all accounts. Everyone agrees with that his area was the last part to be taken, and that he surrendered. And he said, "Whoa, time out. We surrender. I'm the famous Davy Crockett." And that the Mexican soldiers were so impressed because they knew who Davy Crockett was. And they're like, "Whoa, Davy Crockett, celebrity." And so they're like, "Wait, maybe we shouldn't kill this guy." So that they take the remaining survivors and Davy Crockett back to Santa Ana. And Santa Ana's like, "I don't care who he is. Like, I gave orders. The orders were that you were to kill everybody inside." That was pretty clear with the whole Deguello and red flag thing. Like, I expect everybody to be killed. So what are these prisoners? We're killing them. And so the Mexican journal accounts that he was killed at that point. There are some like legends that he escaped and different things like that. But the most two reliable stories are that he either died in front of the chapel or he died in front of Santa Ana after the main battle was over. And if you watch movies about the Alamo, you'll see it depicted both ways. The newest movie from the Alamo, which I think was maybe 2004, 2005, depicts him being taken to Santa Ana. And then the previous ones all show him being killed in front of the chapel. And again, I don't know who's more reliable. That's kind of up to you. That's your decision to decide what you kind of think happened to him there. And then the last person I want to tell you about is Juan Seguin and what happened to Juan. So remember that Juan Seguin, he was the one that was the mayor of San Antonio. He had to give up his job. He declared for Texas. He fought at the Alamo, but he was also sent out of the Alamo. Remember, he was one of the last people to leave the Alamo alive. And he was sent with a message to Washington on the Brazos. "Hey, get some help. We need some help here." Kind of a last-ditch effort to get some help. And he leaves. And he does try to come back to the Alamo. He also doesn't make it in time. He doesn't, remember, he left at the last minute anyway. He delivers his message, and when he comes back, the Alamo's over. It's done. Everybody's dead at the Alamo. And what he did when he got back to San Antonio is actually something that I want you to know. But I'm not going to tell that story myself. I want you to watch another video made by someone else that will tell you more about what he did. And it's something that Juan Seguin is really celebrated for and remembered for in Texas. And Juan Seguin goes on to fight in other battles for the Texas Revolution. And we'll learn more about that later. But I want you to really encourage you to go and listen to this next video because it's actually really cool. It talks about what happened. Remember, I told you the San Fernando Cathedral is very important to the story of the Alamo. And so you're going to find out how Juan Seguin and San Fernando Cathedral kind of like intersect. And so I encourage you to listen to that video. I hope you guys are staying well and safe. See you later.